Welcome to another edition of All Octaves with me, Val Kleinhans, your number one stop for everything music. That is what this podcast is all about. We just BS about music. And we're doing that today with Lee of the Funeral Portraits. I found you guys on Instagram, obsessed with Voodoo Doll. We're going to talk about all of that. Thank you so much for being here, dude.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm so hyped.
Yes. I mean, I'm glad that I found you guys. The algorithm sort of blessed me. What made you gravitate toward your instrument of choice? I know you're a singer.
Yes. So it's kind of funny because I've thought about that before. Well, there's two things. One, you said the algorithm, right? So like
Yeah.
I have been a slave to this algorithm god that
Oh, yeah.
I think the first people to make the algorithm was probably Facebook. They made
Mm-hmm.
the algorithm, and somehow over the last few years I've just been studying it, and I figured out the do's and the do nots of the algorithm. And it's cool that you brought it up, that like you found us through like Instagram, where like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times for many years people were like, oh, I just saw you at a show, or a friend of mine was talking about you and stuff. But now more and more people are like, oh, I saw you guys on TikTok, or oh, I saw you guys on Instagram or stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's cool to see music discovery in such a new place now.
Yeah, I think that's what it should be. What are the do's and don'ts that you learned? I'm curious.
Well, everything has to be, there's just certain words that you can't say. I
Oh,
learned
right.
that. I've got my not saying words. There's certain words that anything that makes you take yourself off of a site, so like saying like
Mm-hmm.
check us out on Spotify, or like follow us on Instagram or something like that, but you're posting that on TikTok. So there's
Yeah,
words like that, but there's also like really, you just have to make very catchy things. Not even the music doesn't even have to be that catchy. Your intro bit that catches the people's attention, as long as someone's like watching it for like 5-6 seconds, you've got it. And it's just gonna
right.
pump that crap out. And so I've been pretty good about my like, if you like this band, check out this band, and it works, and it's cute and it's fun. And I've made really fun content with it, like silly. I did one today. I was making one today of like this video of a coffin getting like flung down a staircase, right? And yeah, it's like hilarious looking, right? It's like an empty coffin. It was just like some like a haunted house or something to scare people.
Nice.
And my whole thing was like, do you like music that looks like this video right here? And it just like and then
The
it's like,
answer is
well then,
yes.
yes, and then check out the funeral portrait, boom, and it's just like silly little things, to just catch people's attention, so but it's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool that you said that, so that made me really happy.
Well, good. And it's working. And I think that's a big part of what social media should be used for, at least for me. Like, just as a fan, I'm like, this is how we find our material anymore. This is how we find what we're interested in. So, who are your influences?
So I grew up going to, smaller shows, probably more than
Yeah.
I did bigger shows until probably a little bit later. I got kind of lucky that I discovered music through through my love of video games, but
Oh,
not
yeah.
in like Tony Hawk Pro Skater or something like that, but I had this magazine called Nintendo Power, and in it was an ad for the Nintendo Fusion Tour. And
Mm.
who was headlining that year, which will show my age, was a band called Evanescence. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so like I was like, whoa, they go on tour. Like I didn't understand music really. I did like musical theater up to that point. Like I was one of those musical theater kids, if you couldn't
Yeah.
tell. And basically I saw the ad, and in it it said play the Nintendo GameCube for the first time ever at this tour. And so I convinced my mom.
Oh,
I didn't even care, because Evanescence had just like came out, and they were already kind of big right when they came out, but like, and I maybe had heard them on the radio a little bit, but nothing crazy. And then what made me want to go was playing the Nintendo GameCube. But I went and I enjoyed the show and I saw it. And that's probably one, it's funny that I got into music that way. But after that, I just took a deep dive, and it was like Evanescence to My Kim to AFI to Alkaline Trio to
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff. But also I grew up, my mom loved like Queen and David Bowie and
Mm.
Blondie and the Ramones, Sex Pistols, anything like that. I was very lucky where music was a part of my house, and even my grandfather always listened to music, even though it was definitely more the outlaw country. So your
Oh
Johnny
yeah,
Cash's,
yeah. Right.
your that whole thing where I was, that was definitely more of what I grew up on, and of course, again, musical theater. So, I like, and I still listen to a lot of that stuff. I'm one of those kind of people that can just throw on the same record for 3 days in a row and listen to it over and over again. So,
Yeah, I'm on my third day of Cowboys from Hell, just in its
mm.
entirety. That, but I know what you mean, and it's the
You just
Tony
get
Hawk Pros.
stuck on something.
Yeah, you do, and I
Yep.
don't know why. It's just a vibe. It's like, okay, this is the mood that I'm in right now, and this is where we're headed. This is what I want to do
Yep.
with this. But no, the
I'm
Tony
into
Hawk
that.
Pro Skater soundtrack is sick. That was one of my first
It
ones
is.
too.
And that's so
You're
funny. Yeah, no, that's so funny because like I've like had I've kind of never really told that story before of discovering music that way, because I didn't really think about it until this last tour. We were just talking about music and games and stuff, and someone brought up the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack, and I was like, yeah, of course, that game's sick, and not just the game, but the soundtrack was always
yeah.
awesome. I mean, I think that's how like a lot of people discovered like Good Charlotte and all of those bands, like was from that.
Mm-hmm.
From the first game or second game. But like I discovered music through video games through a magazine to go check out from an ad. An ad worked on me, whoever made that ad to say, hey, you could go play this new system that's not out. So
That's it. No, yeah, you're not the first person that's told me a similar story. I've heard people getting into video game soundtracks and then just kind of like exploring their horizons from there. How did the funeral portrait come to be?
so I have been making music for a long time. All of it was always locally. I had never been able to break that past the local mold, even though I had so many friends do it. And
Mm,
I had, because being here in Atlanta, I I grew up with all of the guys that went on to do Issues, and before that was doing What Was Me, or or whatever else band, Attila, or
right.
that was more the scene stuff, and then I just never could catch a break with any of the bands that I did. And I think a lot of it wasn't my time, and I think about that
Mm,
now too. But in about 2014, because the band's been around since 2014, um, I was like, okay, we have this opportunity to go do an EP with this guy Sean from Alisana up in North Carolina. He was like, hey, I love your band. I have this label slash studio, and I really want to produce your record or your EP. And all the guys that were in the project at the time, they we kind of all were like, I think this could be our moment. Let's go and take it. So we chased it, and 2014 we really gunned it down and started just being like, okay, this is it. This is our chance.
mhm.
And some time passed, of course, and we do the EP, and things start turning out to being good, good
Yeah.
as in, not the song, but like things finally are like working for us, and
Yeah.
and I think that was how we kind of broke the mold, was just taking a chance on this small opportunity.
Okay. Were there any initial challenges that you faced while getting set up? And because I know, a lot of bands for up and coming, they run into a lot of things that they don't expect. What were some of those initial things for you?
Yeah, I think so. For me, I think the biggest, a lot of it happened a little bit later on, because
Mm,
for us, we kind of hit the ground running a little bit, where in 2014, basically we were already a band. We were called Cosmoscope at the time,
mm.
and we thought we were going there to go record a Cosmoscope EP. And then we
Okay.
started talking with Sean, and he was kind of like, hey, like, the name Cosmoscope, it's not really sellable. And then I don't know why we thought the Funeral Portrait, the world's longest band name, was even more sellable. But he was just like, Cosmoscope, it doesn't really fit. It also didn't really fit the vibe of the EP, and it was kind of
Okay.
different. and it was a different vibe. And so we're like, you know what, like, I think it's time to do a overhaul, and just take this completely different. And we did, and I'm glad that we did. And I think for me, I really envisioned going forward, larger than life scale of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a full like start over, erase of all the old quote local band or baby band thing, I just
Okay.
wanted an erase of that. So that was the biggest first hurdle, was coming up with like, all right, this is it, like it's time to become serious.
Yeah. What do you think he was talking about when he said it wasn't sellable? But what
um
does sellable mean to him?
so I think it depends, right? So I think there's multiple things. I think one, we wanted to be like a dark band.
Mm,
I think what he maybe meant was it didn't fit, right? So like think about if you go and see Motionless in White, right?
yeah.
And the name Motionless in White, you're like, oh, you could tell they're a dark band, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
Motionless in White, spooky, or the Funeral Portrait. You expect something spooky, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, but like you hear a name Cosmoscope, you're like, is this gonna be like Starset? Like you're
That would have been my first thought.
yeah, like are you expecting people in like spacesuits coming out on stage? And that wasn't what we were. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it was more of that, where it was with the name The Funeral Portrait, you've got multiple things. You got the abbreviated letters, TFP,
Mm-hmm.
which we use sometimes. We even once thought about changing the name fully to just TFP, like AFI or
Oh,
POD,
yeah. Yeah.
or some of those bands, or like him or whatever it is. And even I have no clean clothes because I literally just got back from tour like 2 days ago. So I'm wearing a TFP hoodie right now, but literally
Yeah.
it just says TFP instead of The Funeral Portrait. And so like I think for us, when we thought about the name, we really wanted it to be quote sellable in multiple packages. One,
Mm-hmm.
the name, The Funeral Portrait. You look at it, you're like, oh, I know that's going to be a dark, spooky band. Two,
Mm-hmm.
TFP. It's the initials. It kind of stands for this thing, um, which helps. So branding, I guess we can all
Right.
label that under. So
Yeah. No, you must have been paying attention in branding 101 because you've taken it into other aspects of the band too. Your fans are the Coffin Crew. Tour dates are not simply shows for you. They are devotion ceremonies, which I freaking love. How did you come up with those creative ideas?
So it's a little bit of a group effort when it comes to certain things, especially with the language of the band. A lot of that is me, and then Caleb, who's our, I guess if you're standing on stage, he's the right guitar player and the
Yeah.
keyboard player guy. Um Him and I kind of go back and forth with all the branding ideas of the band now, at least,
Mm-hmm.
since he's joined. He joined back in super late 2019, like right before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Um, so, but he wasn't, it was kind of weird because we hit the pandemic and then it was like, oh, nothing's happening,
Thanks for
So
joining. Guess we're gonna not do
yeah,
anything for a
that's
few
another
months.
story. Yeah, that was funky time. But basically, for us, I knew when we were getting ready to move this band to the next step, and that was signing with Better Noise, that was actually landing really good managers and a really good booking agent, and like all these things started really lining up. I was like, I want this band to not just be a band. I want it to be a larger than life thing. The bands that I grew up on, that I
Yeah.
loved, they had that. They had these stories behind every single thing that they would post, or not even post. Before then, it was like, you'd open up AP magazine and Gerard, would have this massive column about some story that he's working on that then
Oh,
goes to
yeah.
be the Black Parade, or whatever. And it's like, that's what I really miss a lot in music. But I do think bands like Ghost, and I mean, I think Ghost does it probably the best way, where
Right
they're,
now, yeah,
yeah,
I would
and
say
then you have,
so.
you also have like Avatar and some of those other bands too, which Avatar is definitely not as big, but even like a Japanese band, Baby Metal, they do it. They have this
They're so
large
adorable. I love them.
story. Yeah, they
Yeah.
have this like large story behind them too. And I think for us, we're building that. And as people will see early next year, when we start putting out more music, every video that we're doing is going to be telling this story. I think another band that does it really well is Ice Nine Kills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're like literally on top of the world right now, and just blowing up, which is great because they've worked so hard. But I think for us, we realized what we needed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
we really sat down and was like, this isn't just a show. You know what I mean? It's a devotion ceremony. You are going and you're devoting your time, your energy, your money, to not just us, but to the whole experience of being there, you know? So we were like, it's a devotion ceremony. And we're also recreating a cult with the Coffin Crew. And it's growing, and it's getting larger and larger. And that is something that a lot of our content is gonna slowly become more and more wilder when it comes to the cult and what's next. It's just we're huge on taking steps, not leaps. So instead of us revealing all of our cards that we have planned for next year, it's very like, okay, well, we're rolling this out like this, slowly.
Mm-hmm. Just see how it is, take the temperature of it. Maybe we'll do
Yeah,
more with it. Maybe we'll tweak this, tweak that before we do a
exactly.
full hard launch.
Exactly. Well, and I think also a big problem that I see is when an artist skips steps while growing, and it
Mm.
doesn't they won't last long. They don't last long in the ring, kind of. So my thing is, especially with the budgets that we have, which were money aside, you know, whatever it is, but you know, it's one of those things. We're still a small band. So like in our brains, we want to spend $500,000 on a music video that looks like a movie,
Yeah.
right? But the actual budget that we have to be like, okay, how can we get the ideas of that $500,000 music video in a $7,000, $10,000 music video, you know, instead.
Yeah.
And so we try, and it's one of those things that everything we decided to take in steps instead of like, okay, you know, like sink it all into this one.
Right. Talking about aesthetics and music videos too, Voodoo Doll seemed to nail it for me. I was like, okay, this is like almost a movie. This is like a full blown story. You have actors in there too. There's just a beautiful look to the video overall. I got from the song that the message was, addiction doesn't just affect the user, it affects those around them. Am I totally off on that? Or is that what
No,
you were hoping Voodoo
not
Doll
at
would spark?
all.
Okay. So
Yes,
you're hoping
yes.
that conversation would happen from that song and
Yes, no,
video.
that was perfect. And I'm glad. I'm glad it kind of comes across that way. You know,
Yeah.
with the music video, as you brought up first, the music video, we also in the music video, I didn't want to show like drug addicts on the street, you know, because like
No.
that's
Yeah.
not that's also there's two things. One, that's not what really the song's about, but two, like I don't that's not the type of band we are. We're trying to portray, you know, there's this angel that came down from heaven and she has all these arrows in her and stuff. And that was to show the imagery of the idea of what it is, but not show someone out on the street doing heroin on camera. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
as a lot of bands would do, and that's just not who we are. But yeah, basically the song's about being in love with someone that not so it could go both ways, where we wrote it to be, yes, they are a drug addict, and it hurts them, and it sucks to see someone that you love go through that, and it hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's almost selfish. There's a lot of selfishness in the song going on,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that is from self I've been in some pretty different and rough relationships over my years, and the biggest one is I think it sucks when you love someone so much but they don't love you the same way. and
Mm.
and this was and this was that song, you know. And it's hard. It's a weird situation. um but I think it's kind of a selfish, again, song, because, you know, most most addicts to whatever it may be can't help it. It's just in their DNA. It's just who they are. It's just is what it is. Now, can you help getting help, or if someone that loves you is trying to help you? Of course, there's certain ways, of course, there's certain things that can happen. But all in all, it's just like, when you it's like self-inflicted hatred on yourself doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't understand, because a lot of people haven't either been there, or they haven't experienced it, or if they have, they didn't they weren't involved. They saw it from the outside in and not the inside out. And that's something too that I know, after hating myself so much because I loved someone differently, I wanted to write a song about it. And that's basically where we came to be with Voodoo Doll. It's pretty deep and dark in there, but I'm not one to spell it out fully, because for me, I think music should be the interpretation of the listener. And because there's certain songs that I grew up loving and being like, that's not what that song's about. You guys are crazy.
Yeah.
It's about this. And then being like, wait, dude, no, that's something that you just came up with, and I think having a song that has multiple meanings is very important. And, almost every song on our record has a double meaning, which we really wanted. We wanted the listener to experience kind of the record multiple times and understand, because there is a backlying story to the whole record, but I want them to listen to it and be like, oh, okay, I get it, like, kind of thing.
So it's kind of a mini story within a bigger one,
Exactly.
so to speak.
Yeah, and it's not really a concept record. We're making it a concept record with the videos, but all the songs have meaning. There's like a song that I don't know if I've ever even posted about it, but basically we wrote a song about my grandmother passing away, who was like my mom, basically. I grew up with her, and my grandfather writing her this like letter explaining how much he misses her, and that's like how we end the record, and like how he talks about like and stuff like that. And now is that, every song on the record has some sort of bigger, larger than life meaning to it.
Okay. How do you feel about covers? Because one of the funniest reels, or it made me like so giddy that I saw you do on Instagram, was the cover of Teenagers MCR with Low Spirit.
Yep.
How do you feel about covers? More of them in the future, less of them, just something you do for fun?
Yeah, so I love that one. So Josh, Low Spirit, I've known Josh for 10 years, maybe. I don't know. Him and I have known each other forever. And basically I just have so many funny stories about him, because it's weird, because him and I were actually in the studio working on our record, because Josh is like our producer, or one of our producers. We have a few, cool. But he was one of the producers on the record. And Josh was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing covers, just for fun, because he was like in a really dark place, and he was like, I just think I need an outlet for music that's not just making music for someone else. And he was like, I'm just gonna do it. So he started posting on TikTok, then he started posting on Instagram, and of course it's been great. And it's so funny, because him and I joked forever that we wanted to do stuff together, but it was never the right time.
Okay.
And so we decided to do Teenagers, and because well, we all love My Chem, and I think that was one song that him and I were like, if we're gonna do one, let's do that one, because it goes back and forth, so it's more sassy. It's more sassy. It's more of just who I am too, so it has the sass to it. So I love doing that one with him. I've done a few more. TFP, we did a Helena cover for charity that we posted. Cool. It's like up on Spotify and everything. It didn't really get a huge like attention, and a lot of that is because like I didn't really want it to, because I'm a little weary about certain covers, especially a covering a band that people would be like, oh, you guys are like My Chemical Romance, why would you cover that, you know what I mean? for us, it was for charity. It was for to write Love on Our Arms. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this. Hell yeah. So, and we also did it kind of differently. And then we did a cover of Mad World during the pandemic, but that's just up on YouTube. I'm sure we're going to actually release that song at some point. We plan on playing that on our next tour too, kind of just having some fun with it. I think I love covers. I think it's fun. I think it's an easy way to discover new talent.
Mm.
As long it's hard because sometimes people get stuck in the cover game and they can never get past it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that have been doing the social media cover thing and they're very successful at it and they do make money doing it, but they are also extremely talented in their own way for their own music. And with TFP, we, of course, like if we got famous off of a cover and then it goes to something else, then sure, you know, but I'm not dissing anybody that does the cover game because it's a great way to discover new artist or new talent or whatever it is. I personally will only be doing like, I plan on basically starting off the year next year with doing a cover almost every week or every other week, where it's at least something new and nothing long, very short, just something fun. I started doing that a while ago and I did a bunch of random ones. Like I did like The Reason from Hoobastank, you know, I did some like deeper cuts like Golden from Fall Out Boy, you know, like some other stuff, you know, and I think for me, as long as it's a song that I really enjoy or that means something to me, I'll do it. You know, and it's great. I also know that we've had a lot of success. I think I had this really tough time during the pandemic when every artist started doing covers, and it freaked me out so much because I was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. Like, I don't want to do this. You know, this isn't me. This isn't just really who I am. Even though I do have fun with them, I was just really scared that I was gonna be like, all right, well, this is it. Like, I just got to start doing covers, you know? And so I started doing them and I still didn't get the enjoyment out of it. And then TikTok and Instagram, I started just being more of myself with the covers and then started also creating some more original content and it started working, you know? I think that at the end of the day is finding your own thing and just killing it and being happy with it is the most important thing.
Absolutely. What do you still hope to achieve as a band?
The world domination, you know,
Yeah.
no, so for us, it's hard because we have a hard time. We're kind of a different-ish band, right? Like we're not heavy, but we're not soft, right? So going on tour with an indie rock band really doesn't work for us because we're a little too heavy or we're a little too spicy, you know, like we're a little
Yeah.
we're a little too like wild, you know, to go
Yeah.
out there with a band that's just like an acoustic guitar and a drummer or something, you know.
Right.
So finding the right tours is a little hard. The type of bands that we should go out with, and we're again, we're not heavy enough to go out with like a metalcore tour, really, you know what I mean, or deathcore or something. And the problem is the tours that we really need or want, the bands are like huge, or not even huge, but they're doing 1,000 cap rooms, you know, and it's having that opening slot on a tour like that is so difficult to have. But for us, I think that's our next step is what we really, really want is to have like our shot at the touring circuit because we're a live band. A lot of people on social media, you know, TikTok, Instagram and stuff. And I even know Josh, you know, like Low Spirit, he might tour at some point, maybe one day play a live show, but I don't think he really cares about it, especially now that he has like a kid and stuff. I think he loves his online community that he's built and does that kind of with it. And so with us, I kind of was like, we're the opposite where I love doing online stuff, but for me, I live for the stage. And if next year, if our agent was like, hey, I got you guys literally a 250-day tour straight, go. And I'll be like, okay, bye guys. Like I'm there, like we're there. Because for us, the stage is where our show is. That's the devotion ceremony. That's our thing. And so we're hoping that's the next step, is to land something bigger. And it doesn't have to be crazy. For us, it's and we
something like When We Were Young could be perfect for you.
Exactly. Like landing a festival like that would be honestly life-changing for us, because one good set, you can change the world with it, because people are like, oh, whoa, and it has before for us. We've had multiple great times, and we've definitely done more things than that. We've definitely done things that a lot of bands would be, oh my God, I would give up my world to be in that position. Just even the tour that we just did was great. It was doing like 100 kids a night. And a lot of those people came because they saw us on TikTok or Instagram, or they got into Voodoo Doll, because it came on their Spotify or something, which is great to know that we have a lot of new fans and our old classic, Coffin Crew members that have been there since 2014, still coming out. So it's cool. It's a cool vibe.
Cool. Then this sounds like there's a lot to look forward to, and we're definitely going to keep our eye on it. Thank you so much for your time, Lee.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.